story that I bookmarked about a week ago. It had to have been more than a week ago because today's the 4th. I think I saw it in my bookmarks dated October 22nd. And I went back and I looked at it. I said, "Oh." I said, "Oh. Oh, this is worse than I thought it was upon first read." So this particular story has to do with the stealing of an Afghan infant. And before we get deep into the woods of the nuts and bolts of this story, I just want to lead off with a rhetorical question, or even a question, philosophical question, a question that actually might have an answer. And if you have an answer, please drop it in the chat. And if even if you have a wrong answer, well, wrong answers will be accepted. Wrong answers will be accepted. So the question to start off this segment is, when will white folks get tired of stealing babies? Particularly brown and black and Asian babies. Because from where I sit, it appears as though Europeans love to steal non-white babies. Love it. Stole African babies, stole African American babies, continue to steal African American babies. Again, I refer to you back to Thursday's Remix Morning Show interview with the founder of Operation Stop CPS, Amanda Wallace, who has been organizing extensively around what she calls, and I agree, the kidnapping of Black children from Black homes under the guise of Child Protective Services. And Child Protective Services is run by white folks, mostly white folks. So, this is still in African American children. They've been stealing kids from Asia for forever. Oh my gosh, been stealing the hell out of Asian kids, and of course, we can never forget the just heartbreaking, horrific, and systemic removal of indigenous children from their homes, from their tribes, placed in these horrible residential schools where they were abused, neglected, murdered, and disregarded in mass graves, right? White folks running all them joints. So I submit again, when will the whites get tired of stealing non white babies and babies that don't belong to them? Well, apparently, no time soon. So, this story has to do with an American Marine who was stationed in Afghanistan. And while in Afghanistan, I'm not privy to his mission, but whilst in Afghanistan, he happened upon a 2-month old Afghan infant who was receiving treatment in a hospital. Why was she in the hospital, you ask? Because the US military killed her entire family, killed her mother, her father, her several siblings, and she was the lone survivor, and they pulled her out of the rubble. So she was in the hospital receiving treatment. And this white US Marine says, since nobody seems to want this baby, I will just take the baby. And I want us to pick up the story with a mainstream journalist who already had my respect. But it warmed my heart to see specifically her covering this. And I'm talking about Washington Week's own and part-time NBC contributor Yamiche Alcindor. I'm usually very loath to give credit to mainstream reporters, but I've been following Yamiche Alcindor since she used to write for USA Today, and perhaps some of you have been following her even longer than that. But Yamiche has always came with the journalistic cred, the journalistic skills, in my opinion, and even the stuff that she does for NBC. It doesn't totally rub me the wrong way. Of course, it's going to somewhat rub me the wrong way because I'm aware of NBC's biases and their slant, and I think sis does what she can to stay above that or stay outside of that. But regardless, her gig with PBS, I think, gives her a chance to to do more in depth of the reporting that she's quite capable of, and she does a really good job doing. So big up to Yamiche Alcindor. And I want us to pick up with her interview of an AP reporter who has been covering this. And I have to credit the Associated Press as well, because this is the Associated Press's story. And I want us to take it from there. So we're going to start with Yamiche interviewing one of the lead reporters of this piece about this US Marine, in effect, stealing a baby from Afghanistan. Her blood relatives, her surviving family members, have already filed a federal lawsuit trying to get her back. So we'll pick it up from there. Let's take a look.
In September of 2019, there was a US military raid in Afghanistan. And in this raid, a mother, a father, and 5 children were killed. There was a 2-month baby there as well, and she was pulled from the rubble. She survived the raid, but she was brought to a US military hospital for treatment. She was injured, so she was receiving treatment there. We're not exactly sure when or how, but at some point, a US Marine met this baby and decided that he wanted to bring her back to the United States. During this time, the Red Cross and the Afghan government, they began looking for the baby's next of kin, her relatives. And ultimately, they did identify some of her relatives, and she was sent to live with a cousin and his wife. But in the meantime, this US Marine still was determined to bring this child back to the US. And so he went to a court in Fluvanna County, Virginia, and sought adoption through this court system. And ultimately, he was granted an adoption order. When US troops withdrew from Afghanistan last year, this Marine helped this Afghan couple and the baby come here. The Marine helped them get the necessary documents, including an Afghan passport for the baby. And according to a federal lawsuit that this couple has filed, they say that when they arrived in the United States, this Marine took the child, and that child has been living with this Marine here in the US ever since.
I mean, there's so many threads that I want to pull at here. The first one I'll ask you about is, you report that this baby was pulled from the rubble and that their family, the family of the child is saying that that her family were not terrorists, this was sort of a mistake to target this family. But Joshua Mast, who is this US Marine, he has a different story. Talk about the discrepancy here and what we know about the truth.
Well, because we are relying right now on court documents, all we can tell you is what the Masts say and what the Afghan couple says. So the Masts say that this child was stateless, that she wasn't actually Afghan, and that she's not technically an Afghan citizen. But the couple says that she is, and that they are her family. And we know that when the Marine was seeking adoption order from this court in Virginia, that he told the judge that Afghanistan was prepared to waive jurisdiction over this child, which means Afghanistan would not be in charge of where the child goes anymore. But we also know that that never happened.
Where should we start? Where do we even begin? Do we even begin with why this child was orphaned in the first place? Because US military is utterly incompetent, heartless, and just routinely kills innocent civilians and citizens in their houses, minding their fucking business, not doing anything to anybody. But somehow here come the US military on a raid, and the whole family is killed except for this 2-month-old who is now orphaned. And let Joshua Mast, the Marine Mast, let Marine Mast say it. This child who was born in Afghanistan to Afghan parents is not Afghan herself? How? Oh, because white people said so. Got it. Got it. Oh, right. Yes. This is the part where we get to the alternate realities that white people will create and demand that the rest of us acknowledge and accept this shit. The fuck are you talking about, man? In what world is this child stateless? In what world is she even without family? Because her people have stepped up. Her relatives were located by both the US federal government and the International Red Cross. And I don't think the AP in their story detailed about what methodology was used to identify, to make sure that this family that was found was actually the blood relatives of this child. But these other sources have done that. And yet, Marine Mast and his wife refuse to relinquish custody of the child. They are going forward in court. Now, there's the interview with this reporter. I just had her name, Juliet L. Is it Juliet Lindman? I was just looking at it. Yes, that was Juliet Linderman. And the other reporters on this piece are Claire Galifaro and Martha Mendoza. Really good reporting from the AP. And you know how I don't really like to give credit to the mainstream journalists, but when they do a story, and it's a really an interesting story. I mean, I don't know what consequence generally the story has on the rest of society, but I think it does a very good job of demonstrating the cascading consequences of American imperialism. You know what I'm saying? Like, uh, the US military has ruined generations of families, not just in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Vietnam, in the Marshall Islands, in fucking Puerto Rico, in Hawaii. Like, this colonialism is catastrophic. And and even when the facts are so clearly supposedly not in their favor, this orphan child has family that wants her. The whites, the whites make up some shit. And let's be clear, if what has been reported is true, that Marine Mast and his wife went into court and said that the Afghan government was prepared to, say that it was cool for them to take this baby, they lied. They perpetrated a fraud on the court. And yet they continue. And yet they persisted. The problem is, it is not beyond the shadow of a doubt that this child will not go back to her Afghan family. And by the way, the AP piece also goes on to report that the concept of adoption in Afghanistan, the concept of adoption as recognized as the westernized and Americanized version of the practice, they don't do that shit in Afghanistan. Like, ain't no somebody else going to raise the family baby, even if the child is orphaned by their parents. Someone in the family takes the baby. Like that. What you mean, give the baby up for adoption to strangers, people outside of the culture, people who don't speak the language, people who cannot pass along this child's religious and cultural heritage of her, people who cannot pass along memories of her actual parents and her siblings that, again, the US military killed. Again, I ask, when will white people stop stealing people's babies? Probably not no time soon. I'm gonna keep an eye on this case. This case is moving forward in Virginia court. Why? I'm confused, because I guess that's where the Masts have filed, their court petitions. But this is kidnapping. This is theft. Like, I don't see how. I mean, I guess it's not theft. It's kidnapping. And no, it's theft. You don't thief this baby. You have thiefed this baby. Theft, kidnapping, fraud. Anyway, I'm gonna keep an eye on the story. But again, I wanted to big up Yamisha Sender and the Associated Press. Lord have mercy. I'm sorry. And if Yamish sees this ever, Yamish, I'm only saying this because you work for the mainstream. You're a fantastic, brilliant, brilliant journalist. But I don't pick up anybody usually from the mainstream. Not if I can help it. But job well done, and well done to the AP and the women reporters who worked on this piece. We'll keep an eye on it.